the mind is the body is the mind, the gut is the mind, the body, it's like all mixed together. We've got signals coming from all parts of us. Our bodies are amazing receptors of information and experience, and also our connection with the soul world, right? We want to also include the soul world, wherever we came from and wherever we're headed. That's all part of being a human in a body.
The reality is, as humans, we live in a body that has a mind, a thinking mind, a feeling heart, an openness to understand the world and ourselves, a curiosity really about that. And when we can bring a curiosity to our whole self, this bundle of experience that we have access to so much wisdom. The truth is, the body feels things first. Every experience we have as humans lands first on a physical level. Now, we may not be paying attention to it. We might be distracted. We might have learned from trauma to get out of our bodies and dissociate. But the first place any experience lands is here, physically. And then we're going to have emotions about it. And then we're going to have thoughts about it.
Trauma can manifest both physically, mentally, and emotionally. When we go through a traumatic event, what ends up happening is that we end up developing a new nervous system, or a different nervous system, I should say. And essentially what ends up happening is that our body believes that we are experiencing the traumatic event, even in a situation where that traumatic event isn't happening. So the body remembers and is typically in a heightened state for prolonged periods.
Responsive to a trauma, our body will go into an automatic defense mode. This is just hardwired into all of us. It's how our brains work, and it's there for a really good reason. Our automatic defenses, flight, fight, freeze, even for some people feign death or fawning, all of those responses happen just like that, in the blink of an eye, because our bodies want to keep us safe. It's a survival strategy in our brain, and our bodies go into overdrive. And if those experiences in our body come and go, great, we come back to neutral, and our bodies don't keep an imprint of trauma. But sometimes we end up holding that, and it doesn't move through us. And our bodies come to believe that the risk is not over. We are not safe. And if somebody lives in a state of feeling unsafe in the world for an extended period of time or multiple times in a row, it's like a switch in our brain, the good switch that says, oh, there's trouble, let's get prepared. It just doesn't turn off. And so we have adrenaline and cortisol coursing through our bodies, our heart rate changes, our blood flow changes, our thinking capacity changes, and in fact our access to our neocortex, that's our thinking brain, gets changed. So our thoughts start to become ones of risk and fear. When we stay in that heightened state of fear and self-protection, it becomes a kind of imprint. It becomes harder and harder to get out of it. And the reality is, on a very foundational level, the presence of adrenaline and cortisol in our bloodstream in a sustained way changes how our DNA replicates. So when the DNA double helix unfolds and proteins come in to attach and make a replication, the presence of adrenaline and cortisol, which is caused by trauma and a heightened state of arousal, actually changes what proteins will bind and which proteins won't. And in the end, for folks, especially when that trauma is young in our life, when you're a child, or when it is a sustained state of being, we actually are reprogramming ourselves on a DNA level. So trauma goes deep. You know, it goes to the foundational building blocks of humanity on a physical level, on a physical memory level, on a DNA level, on an emotional level, and in the things we come to believe about ourselves or the world. We come to believe the world is not safe.
Somatic therapies help to create safety and empowerment by paying attention to where we are in our nervous systems. Are we regulated or dysregulated? Am I feeling organized inside or am I feeling disorganized? And what to do when I experience some overwhelm coming. So I can help with noticing and having intention around not tipping over the trauma chute and falling into that zone where it's going to be a period of recovery from all the adrenaline and cortisol and all that. So I can help with tracking where we are somatically so that we can have more flexibility, more presence in the here and now, so that we stay in that kind of adult consciousness place more than getting tripped up by all of the internal family systems parts that might come up as little judges or complainers or whatever. Relational injury part related may be showing up. Stephen Porges talks about how safety is not the absence of trauma, it's the availability of connection. So being a psychotherapist, I am prepping myself to be present and available for connection in order to create some safety for the person who is coming in.
So somatic therapy is exploring the mind-body connection, and essentially what it does is it approaches it from the bottom up, and it focuses mostly on internal sensation and not just on the cognitive or the emotional experience when dealing with trauma. And ultimately the goal is to reduce our stress response when exposed to trauma.
Somatic therapy, there are a number of different approaches, but they all have one piece in common, which is that they pay attention to what's going on in your body as they are doing the therapeutic work. So as we are talking about emotions, as we're talking about your thoughts, as we're talking about what happened to you or choices you've made, we will stay in touch with what is happening with the body. The underlying idea around somatic therapy is that your body holds a great deal of wisdom and can provide you with information about what is happening at a deeper level. The second idea around somatic therapy is that we can use our bodies to help our healing journey happen. And so that can look in any number of ways. That can look like breath work, that can look like movement.
We have a mind that has perceptions, and those perceptions are always historical, based on historical precedent. So any kind of relational injury that we might experience as in utero, through infancy, through toddlers, up to around age 4 or 5, is all going to be implicit memory that we are not going to remember explicitly. We will have sensations. So a lot of information happens when we're really small. In somatic psychotherapy, we're looking at what happened, where the person's lineage comes from. We're looking at like more transpersonal psychotherapy in terms of lineage work, like ancestry. How did things go along the way in the family pattern? We know that there's so many thousands of years of generations of people that came before us. So we want to check in with all the efforts they made to get us here in order for us to thrive today. So along the way, we're going to have some barriers, and there will be traumas that happen that are really, really ancient traumas, like before several generations even. So we want to take a look at that relationship with the ancestors, or the invisible world as we know it today, and what is getting in the way of where we want to go in the present moment. So if that explains a reliance on, like typically we all want to run away from any kind of suffering, that's pretty typically human, and at the same time there's this paradox where humans are naturally self-righting creatures. We have a tendency to want to make things better for ourselves and others. So between those two poles, we're going to do some exploring into what's getting in the way and how can we shift it, so that we can actually go forward into what we do want for ourselves.
There's titration, where the therapist will have the client recall a traumatic experience and then slowly go through that process, and having the client sort of build their internal response, and developing ways to sort of, again, calm their body as they're going through the traumatic experience. Grounding is just a way to, again, while recalling a traumatic experience and the body's becoming activated, it's finding ways to kind of have our bodies be connected to the ground. So it could be having your feet on the ground and taking deep breaths and feeling your feet on the ground. Essentially, again, learning how to pay attention to what the internal sensations are, and expanding our tolerance when experiencing certain triggers. And as we're expanding our tolerance, is pulling tools such as grounding or resourcing or titration, to bring ourselves back to a regulated, calm state.
When we have come to be afraid of the world or each other because of trauma, because of substantive or unexpected loss, because of feeling compromised in our bodies from disabilities or depression, we imprint that sense of fear in the body. It's like the body believes the world is not safe. Somatic therapies work directly on that level to create a new imprint, to allow the body to come to know safety in the world. That happens by slowing our heart rate down. That happens by breathing differently. That happens by allowing the body to come to rest. And sometimes that takes a bit of practice. It's not something that comes quickly or necessarily first time around. It can also happen through that somatic intervention that allows your body to find a moment's peace. And sometimes that's all it takes. One moment of peace or calm, so the body can remember again what it's like to not be afraid.
Redbird Therapy.